Hey, welcome to another episode of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness with Dr. Dan Remley. Today he's going to be talking about humor and stress management techniques, so stay tuned. Hey, welcome to another episode of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness with Dr. Dan Remley. Dr. Dan Remley is an associate professor and field specialist with the Food, Nutrition, and Wellness program at the Ohio State University Extension program. Dan, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. And today, you have some unique things that you're going to be talking about for the listening audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stressful time, isn't it? We have the pandemic raging, and we have a contested election where we're at each other's throats, basically, depending on what side of the political aisle you're on. So there's just a lot of people have stress, and so this is just a way that we can manage our stress, so that because stress can really be harmful to our health and well-being. Too much stress.
All of us have stress, and it's normal to have stress, but you're talking about a lot of stress, are you not?
Right. So chronic repeated stress over time can be really harmful to our cardiovascular system, our mental health, all of that. So we'll talk about how to deal with it and how you can manage it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the program. And you also have brought a PowerPoint presentation.
Yep.
So let's talk about humor and stress. Do they both go side by side, humor and stress, or does humor relieve stress, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Humor can relieve stress that you have. And so I'm gonna tell you a joke. Hopefully you'll think it's funny. So you just laugh there. So this will be helpful. So an epidemiologist, a doctor, and a scientist walk into a bar. Just kidding, they would never do that. So Patrick, let me ask you this. Just after you laughed, how did you feel?
I felt relief, felt comfortable. I felt more in tune with what you're talking about, etc. So it's sort of a way of feeling good.
Right. So what you just experienced is a release of endorphins in your brain. And those endorphins can raise your heart rate and lower your blood pressure and all these things. And so that's really helpful to you. So, you just proved my point. Stress can be a way to release that pent up stress. So we'll talk more about that. So is stress good or bad? We do need stress. Stress, when we were, we need to have those fight or flight hormones. Stress can protect us from, dangerous situations. Stress can be motivating for us. So, we do need stress in our lives. And, but when we let stress control us too much, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when it can be, it can be very, very harmful to our cardiovascular system. It's harmful to all of our organs if you have too much of it over time. So we really want to think about, how we can sort of manage it. I mean, it's okay here and there, but we don't want it to be kind of a chronic type of condition. Stress can affect us physically and emotionally. I do remember a time in my life when my child was sick and I didn't recognize that I had this repeated occurrence of stress, and it actually, manifested itself in strange ways. I remember that my scalp hurt, and I can remember my wrists hurting, and I went to the doctors and they really couldn't figure it out. But finally I recognized that it was kind of it actually was an anxiety disorder, and I was able to deal with that through some, medications, and I'm, not ashamed to talk about that. So, but you want to make sure before you get to that point to try to manage it, to recognize it, and then try to manage it. So stress can definitely affect us emotionally. It can lead to anxiety problems. It can lead to depression. So we have to be very attuned to what causes us those stress and be able to deal with stress and manage it. Our bodies continue to react to stress and be affected by it until we finally notice it and try to manage it. This is a famous psychologist, I believe, Bertrand Russell, and he says it's not the experience that happens to you; it's what you do with the experience that happens to you. So, we can take an experience and we can interpret it different ways in our mind. So, what are some everyday things that cause us stress? What do you think, Patrick? What are some things that cause you stress?
Well, since most of us spend a third to a half of our time working, I would say that the interaction in a working environment can cause lots of stress. I think if you have newborn children or young children, etc., keeping one eyeball on your environment and one eyeball on the children can cause stress. I think for older individuals, I think not having enough to do and sort of seeing at the end of their life, that can be stressful.
Yes, these are major stressors, and these probably aren't a surprise to you. You've already mentioned a lot of these. So family, young kids, financial stress, friends. If you don't have many friends act as a buffer to stress. Time, your job can be very stressful, as you noted. And not getting enough sleep, lack of sleep can really lead to chronic stress. Taking care of elderly parents, that can be very stressful. The holidays are very stressful for people. Living with a chronic illness, especially, or any illness in general, can be stressful. Any celebrations, holidays, events in our lives, obviously things like death and pregnancy, birth. If you moving can be very stressful. Retiring can be stressful. And then, all the responsibilities that we have at home, especially if you're working at home. And actually, the funny thing is going on vacation, you think, going on vacation would be something that can relieve stress. But for many people, it is stressful because you have to plan it and think about how you're going to pay for, a nice vacation and that type of thing. So
I tend to very much agree with you about vacation. It's just the putting yourself in a different environment, getting ready, all the different things that we're thinking about in getting ready. So yeah, I would venture to say that vacations are or can be very stressful.
So I just went backpacking not too long ago, and it was very stressful getting my backpack ready and getting all the supplies I needed, but not too many of the supplies because I didn't want to be carrying too much weight in my pack. But then once I got out and on the trail, it was very physically demanding, but it wasn't mentally stressful. It was very relaxing, actually, after we finished the hikes. It was kind of like a release of stress for me. So I think vacations, if they're well planned, they can help with stress as well. But you're right, getting ready for the vacations can be stressful.
Don't you find, Dan, that when we find ourselves in a unique situation or a different situation that we have not experienced, that our mental capacities sort of take over, and we start really becoming anxious?
Yeah. So any changes in routine and can be very stressful because you're trying to process new information and new sights and sounds and smells and experiences, and it can be stressful for some people. But it's really about how you think about the situation too, and we'll think about that. So just think about some emotions when we feel stressed. Maybe we're worried. I've been very anxious, watching the news and the presidential election going on right now. Sadness. We can feel sad. We can cry. I'm not a crier, I guess. I wasn't. My dad never was, and but crying can actually be a stress release as well.
I think that's very, very true, especially with men. We still teach our children that there are male traits and there are female traits.
Yeah.
Even though crying is more acceptable, we still have those roles embedded in us.
Right. I do think crying is it's a release of stress, and it also releases hormones that can help too, like lower blood pressure, I think, and those types of things. So maybe poor concentration when you have a lot going on. It's just hard to kind of focus on things. Just having negative thoughts, that can be a sign of stress. Diarrhea, headache, again, these are like physical manifestations that you might experience. Definitely high blood pressure, maybe even have difficulty breathing, frequent urinations, sweaty palms, hard time sleeping. I mean, you've got something on your mind, and insomnia, just feeling generally overwhelmed, hopeless, aggressive, muscle tension. When we're stressed, we have those fight or flight hormones, and so we have those hormones that may raise our blood pressure and release blood sugar, and they get us kind of tensed up, like we need to fight that cave bear. Our ancestors had to think, that when they got stressed, they were thinking about, how do I save my life? We can feel fatigued too, like those stressors, they make us really tired. So that can also be a symptom of stress.
Just a quick question. When I was growing up, we were told that if we had a major difficulty, to suck it up and move on. And
be very stoic, and that's part of our culture.
Yes, very, very much so. And I've noticed that in our communities that we're growing, there's an over concern about the levels of stress. For instance, get counseling and being able to treat the stress more. Do you feel that that's good, bad? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think counselors can certainly help you recognize stress and give you some ideas similar to what we're doing right now. I'm not a counselor, but they can help you personalize and come up with like a personal strategy for recognizing your own stress and then being able to deal with that. And everybody's a little different too. And so if you do get counseling, they might talk to you about these the 6 R's of stress management. So there's responsibility. We'll talk about what these are: reflection, relaxation, relationships, refueling, recreation. So the kind of responsibility gets into people to understand that they're in control, to think about their own priorities. And so some of us, say yes to everything. And then, the problem with that is that we only have so many hours in the day. And so some things, I do like the big rock and the little rock in the jar, right? You have so many rocks you can put in the jar. It's the same thing. Like, what are your priorities? And so getting people to getting yourself, if you're just say no to things and really recognize what's important in your work and your life and make those the priorities. And that can help us. So you're not feeling overwhelmed with tasks and responsibilities and that type of thing.
Don't you feel that we have been taught in our jobs that because of the financial situations of many jobs, there have been more responsibility put on us with fewer workers? Do you feel that that's something that our society has been living with that's created a lot of stress?
I think you're right. And there are some jobs where that sort of fit that description, I think. And, but we do, and we're more efficient too, right? So we have computers and robots and things that can help us do things, but there's still, a lot more stressors in our jobs. And so I think you're right. But I do think that still, even in whatever occupation you have, you can think about priorities and say no, to some things and say yes to others. It might be more difficult in some occupations than others that way, but I think we all can improve. So reflection is getting to recognize what those stress triggers are, and then think about situations where you get stressed out. And then also, this is also important, be aware of any signs. They could be physical, they could be mental, they could be emotional, but just being able to recognize that, hey, I'm getting stressed out. I know that my kids always can tell if I'm mad because I shift in my seat. Like, if I'm sitting, I'll shift around, or they can almost tell by my body language that I'm getting upset. My wife can too. She's like, something's bothering you. And that's when I know I'm getting stressed, when I start shifting in my seat. And it's really important to maintain a healthy balance of work and fun in your life. And I think getting back to kind of something you said earlier, about technology, we never really leave our work, do we? Because we have our smartphones. I mean, and we got these pings. We get the text messages and whatnot. So it's hard. It's important in this case to turn off your computer, turn off your smartphone, focus on if you're on vacation or you're on the weekend. Just you have to get away from work. Again, it might be easier for some than others. I mean, if you're a doctor and you have patients that that need you, that's hard because you can't really get away. But many of us can find that balance. And then relaxations are really, really important, just to learn different relaxation techniques. Some people do mindfulness, so like deep breathing and kind of lowering your breathing and your heart rate and that type of thing. Taking a mental vacation, just getting out and getting away from people, and just meditation. Some people have a worry time or journal, so they just write down all their fears and anxieties, and then they think about just help write those things down. Can actually be a way to deal with those types of things, those stressors. Relationships, we know that if you have more friends in your life, you tend to have better health outcomes. And that's why men typically don't live as long as women, because as men get older, they don't have as many friends and relationships. So it's really important to have those supportive relationships in your life. It's if you don't have healthy relationships and good relationships with family and friends, of course that triggers more stress too. And then refueling your body. If you eat a healthier diet, that's definitely you get a lot of vitamins and minerals, and that definitely helps with your stress. Drinking too much coffee, alcohol, those types of things, those can actually make you more anxious. There's research on that. Drinking lots of water, getting sleep. Sleep's really critical. That's about 7 to 8 hours of really good sleep. And then being physically active. We've talked about that. When you're physically active, you go out, you take a walk, or you lift weights, or you go for a hike, you actually release those endorphins. It's very similar to humor. So recreation, doing things that you enjoy, laughing. We'll talk more about laughing. Get moving. So make sure that you build in recreation to your life, and that helps you feel better. So what about laughter? When was the last time you laughed? I know you laughed about 20 minutes ago, right before our presentation. We talked.
One of the things that I found is not to take situations as serious as they should. I've had a coworker or two can be concerned about not taking it as serious as possible. And one of the things that I learned is that oftentimes we're so focused in on what we're doing, we sort of miss being unstressful. So I tend to use uh, different parts of laughter to relieve situations and stress.
Yeah, and just smiling. When you smile, you just by smiling itself, you help others feel better. Around you, and it releases tension, so it helps you feel better, but others around you feel better. So smiling and laughter can be helpful. Sort of change the mood. There's a lot of research on humor. And there was this Norman Cousins. He had a chronic illness, and he actually found that laughter really helped him manage pain. And he 10 minutes of laughter equated to about 2 hours of being pain-free. So when he could get himself to laugh, that would help his pain that he experienced with this terminal illness that he had.
Dan, I heard of a situation where an individual was given, similar to this individual, about 6 months to live because he had some kind of progressive cancer. And
Mm-hmm.
he rented, at that time, they had VCRs and beta tapes. He rented a lot of different Keystone Cop kinds of films.
Yep.
The whole weekend, all he did was laugh, just sort of take everything as it is. And he lived for many, many, many more years. I'm not saying that laughter is a cure-all. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just, for him, it worked out very well.
Yeah. Well, like we talked about, laughter is it releases those endorphins, which can be helpful with pain. Very helpful to your cardiovascular system because they decrease the blood pressure. And actually, there's some research that says that you get 20 seconds of laughter. It's a cardiovascular equivalent of 3 minutes of strenuous rowing. So what's easier, that 20 seconds of laughter or the 3 minutes of strenuous rowing? I think the laughter would be easier. I don't know if you remember Patch Adams. There was a Robin Williams movie a long time ago, but he actually was a pediatrician, and one of the ways that he helped his patients was, he would he would dress up like a clown, and he found that that would be very helpful to his, very therapeutic to his patients.
One of the things that I found, Dan, in laughter, we have to be very careful about not laughing at people.
Right.
Sometimes we can find it very humorous, another person's pitfalls or things of that nature. But laughter is a lot different when you're making fun of someone as it is when you're looking at yourself and finding something amusing. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that could create more stress too if you laugh at somebody and that doesn't make them feel good, so that creates relationship problems. So that's true. There are probably some jokes that others might not find funny that I might find funny, and that's okay. I think I may listen to those jokes or watch those movies that I might not watch them with my wife because she doesn't think the movie's funny, but it's funny to me, so that's okay.
I very much understand. We have our personalities, we have our beliefs in certain kinds of things, and it's not important everyone have the same understanding of laughter. So I agree with you.
So just looking at some of the physiological things, laughter enhances your intake of air. It stimulates your heart, your lungs, your muscles, increases the endorphins that's released by your brain. It relieves the stress response. And so, a rollicking laugh fires up and then cools down your stress response. It can increase your heart rate and then your blood pressure. It's sort of the result is a good, relaxed feeling. And laughter can stimulate circulation, aid muscle relaxation. So it can help, we talked about tense muscles, it can help with that. And then long term, it can improve the immune system. So if you have negative thoughts all the time, it actually suppresses the immune system. And so that's really important to think about in this age of COVID and the flu season and whatnot. We talked about pain. It can ease the pain in the body, sort of like a natural painkiller. It can help your self-esteem. And actually, it can improve relationships, improves our mood. So it can help if you have any depression or chronic illness, it can help lessen the depression, make you feel happier in general. This is some more research. The average adult laughs about 15 times a day. The average child laughs about 100 times per day. So how do you approach stress management? There's some interesting memes here. So this is sort of funny. This is a Minion. So he says, "Do you mean to tell me a stress ball isn't for throwing at people who stress you out?" So it kind of gets back to what you were saying earlier. We don't want to hurt other people, but we can find ways to manage stress that's going to help us. And this is important too. This is kind of a thought on perspective. And so people see situations much differently. They interpret things much differently. So that's important for us to consider that, I may not be a Trump supporter, but I've got to think about how a Trump supporter might see things. And they have different experiences and they interpret things a little bit differently. And so we need to keep that in mind, that our perspective can be how we see the world can actually, it might be different than other people. And we've got to remember that, especially in this day and age.
Just to let you know, Dan, we only have about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So as we're talking about these various different things, I really like your cartoons. They are funny.
And it kind of depends on how we see the world too, how we interpret things. And we can see things very, we can interpret things in a way that's not as stressful maybe, or we can look at things a little bit more optimistically. And a technique that I've been taught at one point during a leadership training was the idea was to think more optimistically about situations. And so, writing down the situation and then writing down all the bad things that could come out of this situation, but then trying to reframe it so it's a more positive outcome.
So Dan, in sort of summarizing this, what are some things we as individuals need to live by?
Well, I think practicing how we interpret situations. So this is our cartoon. Same situation can mean different things to different people and at different times. And so how we interpret things is really important. It's something that I think we can all practice. Reflection, as we talked about, getting exercise, leisure activities, prioritizing things in our day. These are all things that mindfulness, taking those mental vacations, these are all things that we can try and do a better job of, I think. Or, if we feel kind of overwhelmed, counseling's very important. It's, getting a counselor, they can help us think through and personalize some strategies to deal with our stress.
Dan, how can people get in touch with you?
They can email me. I'm at remley.4@osu.edu.
Okay.
And I'm at the OSU South Centers. And so if you visit the OSU South Centers website, you can see my contact information.
Again, Dan, thank you very much. Very informative program, and I look forward to our next one.
Thank you.